Hello, everyone. It's Larry Clark with another episode of Meet the Composer Live, and I'm here today with composer Laura Estes and Holly Lloyd, who is band director in Georgia, and she's going to be asking the questions of Laura. And Holly, take it away.
All right. Well, Larry, Laura, it's a pleasure to be here today with this Excelsior format. And Laura, I know a lot of my students are very interested in your story as a composer. So just to kick it off, they want to know where you're from and how did you get started in music first?
Well, I'm from South Florida. I was born and raised in Hollywood, Florida, and got, all my education there and went to college in Florida. And I started piano when I was 8 years old. And that is how I got started. I just remember my whole life wanting to play piano, and finally my parents got one, actually on Valentine's Day, 1968.
Wow.
I remember that. So that's how I got started in music. And I always also wanted to be in band. So the first opportunity I had to join band, I did.
Okay, so what's your band instrument? What was your instrument when you were in band?
I started out on clarinet for a few months, and then my band director asked me to play bari sax. So wow. I did.
Okay, excellent. And you mentioned college there. Where did you go to college, and what degree in music were you seeking?
I started out at University of Florida and then transferred to Florida State. So I have my bachelor's in music ed from Florida State. And then a few years into teaching, I started my master's at Georgia State, and that's also in music ed.
Okay, all right, very, very good. So along in your musical career here and your little journey, who were some of your musical mentors along the way? Because, we're all influenced by teachers, and who would you say were your important ones?
I guess I can think of four. So my two main piano teachers, Ida Deitch and Gerald Snyder, were hugely important to me. And of course, Mrs. Deitch started me on piano. And then in high school, I had two very fine band directors at Nova High School, Tom Williams, and then Fred Humphreys.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people don't know, but you and I both had Fred Humphreys.
Yes.
As we both went to the same high school. So that's, I feel very fortunate there. So I'm gonna fire some questions from my students. They were very happy to ask you questions. And Rebecca, one of my clarinetists, asked, what type of style of music do you like to write?
Well, I'm still very, very brand new at this, but my goal is to write middle school band music for maybe first, second, and third year players, maybe early high school, middle school band,
Okay.
like.
Very, very, very cool. And I'm gonna do a couple of their questions and then we'll go back to your bio. But Shirley, a flutist, asks, how does a composer start a piece?
I think that everybody is different, but again, I'm still so new at this. So I think for me, it boils down to what am I trying to teach the students?
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to think what concepts would I want to teach my students, and try to find a fun way to do it, or a memorable way to do it. And so the pieces that I'm writing have hopefully really great melodies and chord progressions, but also in my mind, I'm thinking, what skills can this reinforce?
Okay. And along with that, she also asked, when do you know the piece is done? How do you finish the piece?
Well, again, because I'm so new at this, I only know what I know. And so I would get to basically the end of my knowledge, the end of my information, and I'd look at this piece, I'm like, I don't think it's done, but it's as far as I can go. And then I would get help. You know, I had a friend of mine who's a composer look it over, and then she would ask me really great questions, which then got me thinking. So this is a huge learning process for me. And I just submitted a piece just a few days ago, and even the morning I submitted it, I made a slight change in the percussion part. So I don't know if we all know when it's actually done. I'm still learning that.
Sure, sure. Now let's talk about that. So you left college, and tying in what you did next, but also my question is, when did you start composing? So I know this has a long trail for you.
Well, I left college I graduated in 1981 from Florida State, and I started teaching right then. So I taught for 36 years and retired a year and a half ago. I taught high school and middle school band. I started out in Florida, in the West, at Horace O'Brien Middle School, and I've had kind of circuitous route. Most of my career has been in Georgia, so, and that's where I live. So every once in a while I would think about composing, but maybe the last 5 years or so of my teaching career, I kept getting ideas for, you know, again, what we had talked about, you know, how to teach certain skills, a piece of music. So I just kept thinking more and more about composing. And then I didn't realize this would be the final year of teaching, but we were doing a superhero concert, and I always have trouble finding solo and ensemble music for my, especially my double reeds. And so I decided I'm going to learn how to do this. And I downloaded, I think, Finale Notepad, and I wrote, I transcribed a piece for 16 double reeds. my 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they played it, and I was so proud of them, and kind of proud of myself because it wasn't awful sounding. So, but that's how I that's when it really hit me. Like I think I can do this. I think I'd like to really try.
Did you ever mess around some, like in college or even earlier in your career, with the composing bug, or not really?
Little bit. So I remember earlier in my career, I was at a high school and we were playing for assessment production from the Seraglio. So it was a Mozart transcription, and I was listening to the record of these symphony orchestras playing it, and I kept thinking, why does the trumpet have the melody there when clearly Mozart had it for clarinet, or like that? And so I started rearranging the piece. It was already arranged by somebody, so I was rearranging it, and it came out well. And then different times in my life, I remember in high school and middle school trying to do a few little things I did some things for my middle schoolers again, but years ago, just to again bridge some gaps, but not really a whole bunch.
Okay. All right. Coming back to some student questions. So Catherine asked if you could describe the process of harmonizing, like building the harmony with the other instruments. You know, you already have your melody. You know, how do you go about that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I know they came up with some great ones.
Your students are great.
Thank you.
So for me, what I've been doing is I come up with these melodies, and I can also hear the chord progressions in my head. I'll sit down at the piano and play it and see what it sounds like, and then I'll try some surprise chords. So what I don't want to say I have a style yet because I'm so new at all of this, but I think what I'm starting to see is that I'll have a chord progression that's pretty, you know, natural or normal, and then I'll start throwing in some odd, you know, they like to go in some different way and to make it more interesting. And so what I'm trying to do is each time the melody comes back, I'm trying to do something different. So either it's a different chord somewhere in there, or it's a little twist on the melody, things like that, just to make it more interesting and fun.
That's great. That's great. I know as a teacher in the middle school level, it's, you know, a lot of times things get boring. So, you know, from the other side of the podium, I really appreciate that. Something that there's a little surprise, or wow, that's a neat color. So I think that will be something that will serve you well. Okay, so Michael, our tuba player, asks, one of our tubas, how do you get the inspiration to write the music? Where's that come from? Yeah.
Well, my entire repertoire of 3 pieces so far. My first one, the one that just came out, Kvetchers, that really was, I started writing that as an exercise for myself to learn finale. Okay. Because I had spent many years on purpose not learning finale. So sure. I was like, okay, I really need to learn this. And so I did that, and I just came up with this melody and the title almost from the very beginning, and so I don't know which one influenced the other more. Sure. And, yeah, so I hope I answered that okay. Yeah, that was fine.
And tying into that, Brandon, a trombone player, asked, how do you come up with the ideas for the accompaniment? Okay, so you've got your melody, you know, how does that influence the accompaniment?
That's also a good question.
Yeah, they were stunning me.
I think that reflects on you, what a great teacher you are.
Thank you.
Firsthand. Yeah. So I guess for the same thing, the accompaniment, you had said color, and I want it to be different each time. Another goal of mine is, especially playing baritone saxophone all those years. Sure. I mean, maybe I would have the melody for a few measures in one piece over a 3-year period, and we'd be so excited. So I really am trying to, in some way, feature all of the different instruments so that all the instrumentalists can feel like they have something special in the piece. So that also affects the accompaniment, and what I'm learning is that the accompaniment has to be not always the exact same rhythm as melody, because you want to be interesting, and so and then you have the chord progression in there. So I'm just trying to also use the accompaniment to be just fun and different.
Okay, neat. Salvador, another saxophone, asks, how long does it take you to compose a piece?
Well, the first one took me a really long time because I had this huge learning curve, not just with composition, but the actual program, which I'm still learning. And then I was proud of myself because the second piece didn't take as long, but then I've had to circle back to the piece and found that it has taken just as long. So I think as time goes on, I'll get better at it, and then I can, do things quicker. But I'm also kind of a perfectionist in this area, and so I keep revisiting things. So for me, months and months and months.
Okay, like 6 months, 4 months, or it just depends on the piece?
I think it just depends on the piece. So each piece has gotten a little quicker. The first piece, including literally learning how to do finale. I mean, I've been working on it for at least 18 months. Okay. But again, that's also the learning curve. The second piece, I would say, 6 months off and on. And the other thing is as I think of the melodies and I do the chord structure and I kind of write that part out. I handwrite it on staff paper. I don't start writing it right away. I just kind of let it percolate. So I just think about it a lot, and then start. With my third piece, I knew what I wanted to do, but and when I was ready to start writing it, I sat down and I just couldn't. I kind of hit a block, and then I hit on a rhythm, a specific rhythm that I really liked. It was kind of cool and syncopated in 6/8, and then everything just started to flow from that. So I'm still learning all of that and how long it'll take me.
Neat. So now that you've done this trail of band directing and composing, and what advice would you give to, say, a musician in college now, or high school, or someone interested in composing, just about to help them out with this journey or art of composing?
Oh, I would say get some staff paper and just write your ideas down. I know that anytime students came to me with stuff like that, I would have them write it down and we would try to play it a little bit and work with them a little bit, to make sure it, kind of lined up, the right number of beats were in the measure. Sure. And things like that. But I think it's super important because it's very creative. And I just think I would say to students to try it and show it to your band directors and ask your band directors if you can have the band play it, or start with a small group, or even a duet, or even just a song, just your own part and play it. And I did encourage that and would, suggest that the band directors encourage that, and the students just keep trying.
Sure. Now, how about the college person? They're in their, maybe they're a composition major, maybe not. What are some key things they might want to think about to get as tools?
I came at this a little differently than others. I was not a composition major or really have any composition classes, so I feel like I'm kind of behind the 8 ball on that. But I would say to just listen a lot and look at conductor scores a lot of whole bunches of different composers so that you can see how something was done. I can tell you that since I started composing, as I do look at scores, I am looking at them a lot differently. I was judging someplace several weeks ago, and as I kept opening these scores, I was like, oh, that's how they do that, and I remember that, and so I just keep doing that. And of course, you can find a lot of that stuff online now. Very, very easy to find. I remember I had never seen a conductor score until I was a senior in high school. So I always make those available for students, but for the college folks, I would say just listen a lot to all kinds of compositions and get a hold of those scores and study it.
Yeah, I think that's really neat, because just even as a conductor, listening informs me of so many things, good musical ideas and different colors and different kind of pieces I seek out for my students. So that, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I know you're a little new at this, but whose colors do you think you borrow from, or who are some composers that influence you or that you like, or colors you think are interesting?
Oh, Holly, that's hard. I think the best way for me to answer that is, so I have this piano background, so it's a classical piano background, and Mozart and Beethoven and all of that, and I'm noticing in my music that there's a little bit of polyphony, and so I'm wondering if that has come into play, and as far as others, I mean, I just, from beginning band through advanced high school, I've played a lot of compositions from a lot of different composers, and they all just kind of stick in my head. I know that I had Bernstein in my mind a little bit with my first piece with Kvetchers, because I just was using, I was like writing, I was like, oh, who does that kind of remind me of?
Sure.
Of Slava.
Yeah.
So the best way for me to answer that is I just a combination of all of the composers that I've played over the years.
Okay, neat. Do you think that, and I know, again, you've come from a different angle, but do you think young people in the business need to be aware of their just people skills? I mean, how did that work for you with the composing? Like when you first started to get published, how did that happen? And do you think those skills are important?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I was so lucky because, again, I taught for so long, and I have a lot of friends who are band directors, and especially with the first piece along the way, all of the pieces I've asked different people to play them for me, and they've given me time. They've put the music in front of their band, and then I hear it, and it's like the first time it happened, I was like, oh no, we got to change that.
Okay.
wasn't a note thing. That made me feel good. So it really wasn't chords and notes and things like that.
Right.
It was orchestration.
Style.
Like I remember the first time a band did that for me, the band director was very sweet and said, do you think you'd like to put some articulations in there?
Yeah.
Yes, I should probably do that.
Okay.
How? With finale. And so that has been invaluable. And so, you know, I haven't, you know, I haven't had to ask a stranger to help
Sure.
me do that. So over the years, you develop these skills, you know people, you have a good relationship with people. If they ask you to do something for them, you know, we musicians, we band directors want to help each other out. And,
Sure.
and so I was super grateful that these people took time out of their very, very busy rehearsal schedules, let me come in front of the band even. But, you know, I think most band directors would be, you know, like even my former students who graduated, you know, I would always say to them, if you ever need anything, if you need to test out a teaching concept in front of a band, you know, let me know, I'll put you in front of my band. I think most band directors are helpful with that. And so, yes, your people skills help, you know, need them.
Sure. Sure. Do you ever think about being a woman in this field or in this, you know, new role as a composer?
I do. I mean, I started in 1981, and I still remember my third year of teaching is when I started teaching high school. And I remember looking around the room, and I was the only woman. And there have been lots and lots of times in my life when I look around and I notice it. I don't think about it a whole bunch, but then I notice it. And so I think it's really important for everybody to have great role models. But I think it's especially important for everybody to be able to see people that look like them who are their band directors or their composers or in all fields, not just in music. So I think it's very, very important.
Great. You know, when I'm making music, I don't think about my gender, but I do realize things because of gender that have impacted my music making. You know, childhood hymn is a real different piece after you've held your first child after, you know, having this baby. So it's, you know, I can understand some of those things you've said. So you've had this long band career, and now you're venturing with this composing career. Where do you think this composing career takes you, or what do you hope to do with it?
I don't know where it's going to take me, but I've been, things have been happening really, really fast for me since I submitted the piece to Excelsior, my first piece. And I'm just super thankful. And I just want to keep writing music that is helpful to band directors and students. I think we've all been there when you pass out a piece of music and it's just not going well. And then you're asking yourself, okay, is it students or is it the music? You know, is it just too hard or is it just not written well? Sure. And I hope that I never have anything out there that people think it's not written well. And so I just want to help add to band directors' choices of quality music for young people. I really, as a director, I never liked playing a piece of music that I felt was watered down.
Yeah.
I wanted a piece of music that was truly composed for the students that are sitting in front of me, super relevant and, written well.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that too from the other side of the podium, because it's, sometimes in my career, you hit a point where you're like, I need a different color, I need a different piece, I want something more interesting, and certainly middle school level is and above is tricky to do that with. I've heard Kvetchers at different stages, and I liked a lot of the different surprises that came through, and people that are not Jewish may not get the term kvetch, but but they'll learn it in time. Well, Laura, that's all the questions that we have right now. I know many band directors out there will be thrilled to play your music, and I think you bring a very unique perspective of a thoughtful band director and teacher, and I think those things will serve your pieces very well. I'm looking forward to playing some of them with our group here at Radloff Middle School.
Thank you so much, Holly. This has been a real pleasure and a real treat and honor for me. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have Laura on the team at Excelsia. And Holly, thank you for doing the interview today. And we hope this is going to be useful to your students and to students all over the country. So we'll say goodbye. Thanks, Laura, again, and Holly.
Bye.
And have a great day.
Bye.
Yep.